Are you tired of saying yes when you really want to say no? Wonder why you put everyone else's needs ahead of your own, even when you're the leader in the room? So, today we're diving deep into the psychology of people pleasing and how it holds you back from your full leadership potential. In this episode, we're going to talk about why so many women fall into this pleaser trap, and we're going to kind of uncover the costs that are related to your influence and confidence. I also, of course, want to talk about practical strategies to help you become the most effective leader you can possibly be. So that's the framework. And I have to say, last week on the episode with Katie McMillan, if you haven't listened to it, it's about the experiences of being a new leader. She has this phrase that she uses, and it's, Katie, help is not on the way. And it's this sort of moment of realization when no one else is going to fix this for you and you have to step in. My colleague Sherry and I talk about this as the big girl pants moment, and it requires us to get very uncomfortable. And so I had this transformational experience, and I wanted to bring this to the podcast because I want to normalize this. I have been talking about being a people pleaser for my entire life. Okay. This is not new. This is not something I wasn't aware of, but I was not aware of the impact it was having on my leadership and the people around me. And that's actually what has prompted me to start making the changes. So, like the person that is maybe not eating healthily or not exercising. And then there's this day where they have a scare and they finally say, oh my gosh, my health is important to me. I'm going to make some changes. I'm hoping that this podcast is like the spark for you to start looking at your behaviors and checking in with yourself about it. So a couple things about people pleasing and some maybe like things you might see that would tell you that you're doing this. Although in my experience, people actually know they're doing it. They just don't know how to stop doing it. So some of the internal assumptions that you might have, I am okay if people like me. Or you've equated safety in the concept of supporting others. You may do this totally self-consciously, right? Like you wouldn't even know that it's happening, but you realize that maybe you couch yourself in a big room because you're afraid of saying something that would bother someone or hurt someone's feelings. Sidebar, starting a podcast, speaking your voice. This has been such a powerful experience for me when there's no one to interrupt me on a podcast to actually say what I think and come what may. And the other thing to remember is that a lot of the times when you don't speak what your truth is, you end up having it kind of leak out in passive aggressive ways, in giving away your power ways, in being unhappy with the outcomes, but you just can't quite put your finger on when that happened. And I want to talk about that on this episode. So I alluded to this moment of realization. I have joined or have become accredited in a new coaching tool. It's called the Leadership Circle Profile, the LCP. And it looks to me like the clients that are using it are particularly folks with a large hierarchy. So it does like a 360 assessment of an individual, and you get feedback, both qualitative and quantitative, from your boss, your boss's boss, your peers, and your direct reports. And what it does is it maps in a circle your the pieces that are tied to your self-assessment. So you get a self-assessment, and your peers, how they rate you. And so you can see that your line and the sort of grayed out areas, how they rate you. So not only are you seeing, how people see you, but the disparity. Isn't that cool? The disparity between where you see yourself and where people see yourself. Talk about a powerful tool for seeing blind spots. Okay. So the other thing you need to know about the tool is it again is seeped in the background that we talk about around psychology, research, leadership competencies, all that good stuff's kind of been rolled into the tool. And they have a data bank of about 400,000 different leaders. And they've taken that and filled out defined these leadership competencies. Those exist. If you're watching me on YouTube, I've got my hand up, and I'm going like a semicircle 180 from the west to the east. Those competencies are across the top, and those are called the creative competencies. They've been defined and quantified. And then on the bottom, there are these three main buckets of reactive tendencies. Okay. And these reactive tendencies, I want to name them for you just so you can understand what they are. And I want to show how we move through them as a leader. So the first reactive tendency is, wait for it, controlling. Okay. So that's where you have the desire that you need to be perfect. You may be overly driven. You may be ambitious, and you might be autocratic, right? You might be more telling people what to do. So that's controlling. The middle one is protecting. So by protecting yourself, you go on attack mode. This is the folks that are arrogant, maybe lack of self-awareness. How they protect is by attacking. And then on the third one, and this is where my light bulb went off, is the complying tendencies. So what does that mean? In there, you have the conservative person. So have you ever met someone where you challenge them and they immediately go back to the rules? That's what compliance is about. Or sorry, that's what conservative compliance is about. The one, of course, that I'm talking about is pleasing. This idea that you, by pleasing others, you will stay safe and you will comply, but it may not actually be what you want to do. The third one is belonging. So people that feel a strong sense of need to belong, which interrupts, I just want to be clear, interrupts their leadership capacity or potential. And that belonging is something that is a barrier to them being most effective. And finally, the passivity. So folks that don't do anything, they kind of go into freeze mode, not fight, not flight, but freeze mode. And that passivity is what helps keep them safe in a conflict situation. And yes, you are right. The complying, protecting, and controlling behaviors in reactive leadership, that's a response leadership, is tied to fight, flight, or freeze. And so these models really replicate very nicely on that bottom circle what we experience through our formative years. And what's cool about this tool is it's not like we are trying to move away, but we're trying to move through those reactive tendencies into those creative tendencies. And so when I looked at the complying profile, and I'm going to read word for word from some of it, because I think some of you will kind of have this light bulb moment where you're like, oh my God, I do that all the time. So the conservative profile, or let me just start with complying in general. It measures the extent to which you get a sense of self-worth and security by complying with the expectations of others rather than acting on what you intend and want. So one of the byproducts of that with complying, and it's something I've been thinking about and I've noticed in my world, is if you are the leader with a strong complying tendency, we end up with a leadership vacuum. We end up with this gap because we're busy seeing our leadership through the lens of everyone else. And it may have gotten so bad that you don't actually know anymore what you stand for, what's important, how you want to show up in your job. You're so busy positioning yourself in relation to anybody and everybody else. People perceive you as a lack of clarity. People, I wrote them down. These are so good. I wrote them all down because I didn't want to miss them. So people may see you about, you may be masking what you actually feel. You may be calibrating the emotional climate in the room to see if it's safe to speak. Holy moly, guys. And finally, you are busy managing other people's emotions in the room, and they never asked you to do this. If you remember on the podcast, this has been a theme. I want to refer back to a couple of episodes. Number one, the episode about compassionate accountability from Nate Regier, that non-consensual helping. The number two, the one about giving yourself permission to do the big thing. I'm just naming the episodes that you may want to go back and listen to. And there was an uncut that I did about prioritizing for yourself. When all these needs and things are swirling, how do you get quiet and define for yourself what's most important for you rather than for the team, for the organization, for the mission, for the volunteers, for the whatever, for the direct reports, for the et cetera, et cetera. So what is the impact? What is the impact of you giving away your power, of you always looking through the lens of other people? I talked about the leadership vacuum. It's real. You are abdicating your responsibility as a leader. I talked about giving your power away. People are receiving you as wishy-washy, unclear. And so what do they do in that situation? They either go on their merry way and do their own thing, and then you're surprised when they're so far off the plan, or they feel like there's an uncertainty there and they keep coming back and looking for spoon feeding. Both of those things will happen. And then there's a lot of confusion in the shop. So people are like, what does my boss want from me? Like, they're not clear, but then they seem kind of passive aggressive. There's actual, like, tangible feelings in the office when related to this. So at this point, I want to bring in another sort of vein, another layer in our modern culture that is happening. You know, the book Let Them by Mel Robbins. So interesting. So she talks about this experience, and the one let them statement that really stuck in my head was, let them say bad thoughts about me. That's sort of halfway through the book. Let them say bad thoughts about me. And I kept sitting there thinking, wow, how would I feel if I made a decision and I knew people in my office were saying bad thoughts about me? This actually came up with a coaching client recently this week. We talked through this, and she's making some tough decisions, very hard. She knows from a compassionate lens that she's letting some people go. She knows that that's the right thing to do for the organization in the future, but it still hurts, right? And so she and I were talking about how it feels really bad to walk through the office and know that people are thinking bad thoughts about you. How can you get more comfortable with that? And one of the ways to think about it is you are you are the leader. Help is not on the way. We get paid. We have a job to do the hard things. And sometimes people will think bad thoughts about you. They may not understand all of your motives, but if you can stand behind your decision and know that you have at least explored the whole thing in a 360 and made your personal choice, and you can feel good putting your head down on your pillow at the end of the day, maybe not good, but solid in your decision process, then that is absolutely, my dear listeners, the right choice to make. And another byproduct is, if you've been doing this for a long time, if you've been letting your life be led by others, you may be listening to this going, oh my God, Jenny, I am so out of touch with what I really, really want. And I've been so busy accommodating people my whole life. I don't even know what's most important to me. That's where I landed maybe 6 months ago with the business. I was like, I'm doing all these things. By the way, my word for the year is streamline, right? You knew for 2025, my year is streamline. How can I do the same things better, more effectively, more efficiently, and with more success? You know, because I'm a bit of an achiever, and I thought that was a good word. Not about simplify, because I didn't want to do less things. I wanted to streamline the things I wanted to do and the things I was doing. And I also wanted to put like more of a analyzer hat on it, because for those of you that have been with me a long time, have been listening to my podcast, I hope you know I am a relationship driven person. And so one of the things, exercises I'm doing in my leadership and stretching the muscle of the analytical, of the pensive, of the reflection. And that is where I'm trying to analyze things and take a good look. Okay, so all of this is tied to leadership effectiveness. So the aha for me was putting the link between the activities I'm doing, which is relating to everybody else before being clear on what I want and what I desire from the outcome, and really stepping into leadership. And the second part, which is how it's affecting my leadership effectiveness. So the impact on the team. I was doing a debrief with a coach, and the coach asked me, so tell me about the challenges, because some of the verbal descriptions were things like, Jenny, it seems to me that Jenny is, doing great work, has great clients, but sometimes it strikes me that she's stretched a little thin. Just this small comment, right? And the coach asked me, okay, so how is that impacting people's experience of you, i.e. clients, coaches, family, ... And I realized how they might be receiving me. And I asked my daughter this, because that was one of my follow-ups, which I really didn't want to do, because that's what coaching calls are about, is accountability. And when I spoke to her, she said, well, sometimes it feels like you're distracted. You're not really here. You're not really listening. that impact really slowed me down, right? And so I have made this intentional choice to get super clear about what it is I want, why I'm doing it, what intention I'm putting behind it, and being okay with people not liking me for the reasons I make it, that I make those decisions. And you know what's funny is that has been so liberating. I always knew it, but I hadn't acted on it. And so I've been playing with these pilots, these sort of pilot ideas. And ironically, when I've made this decision, the universe is backing me up. I'm reading The Essentialist by Greg McKeown, and he's talking about The One Thing, which is another book I read by Gary Keller. I'll put these in the show notes, folks. And all of these things are reminding me that I get to decide what the most important thing is. It's not up to anybody else to decide for me, right? And that has been incredibly, incredibly limiting. Sidebar, note to self. When you feel resentment, I want to flag this for you. When you feel that sense of resentment bubbling up, that is a great indicator that there's something that has been left untended. That's the what about me phrase. That's the like, wait a minute, what about this thing over here? You've been giving away your power, and it's your body, your brains, your sense, your psyche, your soul's response to say, hey, this needs some noticing, Jenny. So as I close here, I'm just checking out my notes. Beware of relinquishing your power. Take a moment to think about the call to action here really is, what is the complying piece? What is it that you're doing that may be subconscious that's really affecting your ability to lead? The Leadership Circle Profile is a new offering that I'm now offering to clients. It's particularly helpful for team leading and for team and group things. I also just want to give you a reminder that if you're enjoying this content, I'm going to invite you to get on my email list. And on that email list, I email once a week, and it always has great advice. It has great ideas. It has leadership ideas specifically for women and for how to navigate this world from a compassionate accountability lens. And then just a quick reminder that our fall retreat for this year, 2025, is completely sold out. I can't believe it. Thank you to the community. You have stepped up so much around telling me that life and leadership, that intersection matters to you. You can expect some new Chavender offerings for 2026 around this idea of taking stock. Somebody described it as stepping off the conveyor belt of life to take reflection time. And of course, if you've been following along and you're looking for an entry point into being part of my world, Chavender Club, which is our Monday morning 20-minute pick-me-up accountability call with women leaders, that is kicking off again in September 2025, and there are spots still available for that. So, dear listeners, you've made it to the end of yet another episode. The psychology of the pleaser, why you're getting out of touch with what you really want, and those all elements being barriers to effective leadership. Maybe the small step you take, making notes before you get into meetings to remind yourself of what the non-negotiables are. And with that, dear listeners, dear readers, I wish you a wonderful day, and go be great.